Well, welcome to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. This is WYDC TV Big Fox, and we're broadcasting live from historic Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning. Our guests, we've got a great lineup this week. We do every week thus far. Let's look. Today, we're going to be talking with Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Tomorrow, Hornell Mayor John Buckley, and as you see there, Wednesday, Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker, and Thursday, former Congressman Tom Reed. I've got a couple other special guests that I'll be announcing soon, but I wanted to mention the ones so far this week. Obviously, it's not too late to contact us for any of those interviews. If you have any questions for our guests, that's the easiest way to reach me here on Frankly Speaking. Couple of quick things as we kind of set the scene this morning. We've got a lot of great stories we want to get to, a lot of great news stories that affect you. And that's a point that I keep making on the program now that we're starting on our third week, which is very hard to believe. But this is about the community. This is about you. I had the pleasure of getting petitions signed for various candidates over the weekend. And if you've never done that, you essentially go door to door and ask for a signature that person wants this other person on the ballot. And you know, it's a tough job, but it's a really rewarding job because you get to talk to so many people and hear about their concerns and their issues, and they're so specific depending on the area that you go to. And I thought, you know, this is unique because this is what we're doing on the program. You have a concern, you have maybe something you want to praise your local elected leaders. Contact me. We'd love to reach out to them, try to get them on the program, or maybe it's just asking the question over the air to see if other people agree with you on whatever issue it may be. I do want to thank everybody who signed the petition and all the nice comments about the brand new show. I understand a lot of you are making this a part of your morning routine, and we cannot thank you enough here at WYDC TV Big Fox. So, enough with the contact, but like I said, I'll be checking that up to the last minute when Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel joins us to see if there's any questions that you have for him. And the same goes with all of our guests. I'm going to make a somewhat of an announcement later on about some other special interviews, as I said, that we have coming up here on Frankly Speaking. But back to the point about this being about the community. If you even look, like we jokingly keep referring to the wave counter at the bottom. You walk by, you wave. If you contact us. We try to read the email. This is about you. I'm the host, but that's only to keep things in check because it's all about you, the local residents of our beautiful area. So I've got to take our first break. We're going to jump in pretty early with Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel because we've got a lot of questions for him. I've got quite a few local stories, a little bit of national if we can touch on it. Hopefully we have enough time for all of that. But right now we do have to take our first short break, and then we will be back with Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. I want to get to a quick story that broke over the weekend. I'm not sure if you've been following it, but that is the Parents' Bill of Rights Act. Congressman Nick Langworthy, who was kind enough to join us on Friday, and I thought that was a very informative interview. If you missed it, you can find it on YouTube or on our Facebook page. But he supported and actually co-sponsored the Parents' Bill of Rights, and over the weekend he made a comment on that because if you know Michael Lawler, who is out of the 17th district, he was a co-sponsor but then changed his mind at the end and actually was one of, I believe, only 5 Republicans to vote no on this bill. And don't quote me on that. Yes, we're one of 5. I see it over there in my notes. So Congressman Nick Langworthy, who was a co-sponsor, did ultimately support it, and I think that's a good move. What we have here is there we go. He said over the weekend, I was proud to co-sponsor and vote for the Parents' Bill of Rights Act that ensures parents have a guaranteed input on their children's education. And as we know, this is a very major issue, not just in our state, but also nationwide. So, in continuing, whether it be critical race theory or far-left gender ideology, we have learned of too many cases, kept you hooked, where parents are being kept in the dark about the curriculum being taught to their children. This signature bill fulfills a key promise we made to the American people. And I urge President Biden and the Senate to get behind this common sense legislation to protect parents' voices. Now, that's our congressman for the 23rd Congressional District, Nick Langworthy. That was his statement from over the weekend, and this, again, coming from his office, explaining exactly what H.R. 5 is. And, again, that's some people like to mention it by the number. I prefer the name. It makes a little more sense, the Parents' Bill of Rights. Let's take a look at what his office says this bill is really all about. Going to the key takeaways. The pillars of this act include the right to know what's being taught in schools and to see reading materials. The right to be heard, and that's very important. We talk about the right to be heard. That's why I keep pushing the community aspect of this program. You can have your voice heard here. The right to see school budget and spending. Yes, absolutely. We all know when those bills come, we like to see be a little more transparent, a little more transparency. The right to protect their children's privacy, and the right to be updated on any violent activity at the school. So that's the key takeaway from this bill. Again, this is the Parents' Bill of Rights Act. And as I said, nationally, we've seen protests at various school board meetings. This has been a major sticking point throughout the nation. I'd love to know what your opinion of this bill, or specifically what we're seeing in the education system. We know that there is maybe a woke mindset, not to use a term that's thrown around pretty loosely, but a kind of a woke agenda in the schools, and we hear of some of the worst cases, and we hear of some of the shutting parents out, if you will, or we see what they're doing in Florida going the other direction. So this kind of codifying it at the national level to an extent, but that, of course, depends on the Senate and President Biden. We'll see where that goes. But I wanted to mention why our congressman, if you are in the 23rd Congressional District, Nick Langworthy, why he supported the Parents' Bill of Rights. Now, coming up in just a little bit, we are going to be talking with Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel, but I would, again, there's my contact information. I'd love to know what you think of the Parents' Bill of Rights. This was actually going back, I don't want to keep talking about petitions, but that was something that people brought up to me. You see at the national level some of the, I think some of us would call wrong-headed decisions coming from the education system and some of the extreme left agenda being pushed on young children. So it's been a major issue for many of those on both sides of the issue. So I'd love to hear what your take on that is. Again, the phone number there and the email. And one last time, it's not too late to get those questions in for Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. So again, coming up today, Dan Mandel. Tomorrow, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. I had the pleasure of talking with him the other day at an event, and I'm really looking forward to kind of catching up on all that's going on in Hornell. And then we'll talk with Brooks Baker. He's Steuben County District Attorney. And then on Thursday, former Congressman Tom Reed. And again, I did this last week, or the week before, I suppose. In full disclosure, I worked for former Congressman Tom Reed, but I'm looking forward to catching up with him because I've had a lot of people ask me how he's been and what he's up to. So we're going to be talking with him on Thursday. Let's take that short break. As I said, we have the mayor coming in just a few moments. As always, you can contact me. We've got a lot more, I think, very important news stories that will be coming your way when we have time, when we have just a moment. But I wanted to bring up the most local as of now, and then we'll be talking about a few other New York issues when we get a chance. But let's take that short break. We will be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on beautiful Market Street in downtown Corning. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. Joining me in the studio this morning, we have Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. It's good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Frank. Thanks for having me on today.
Of course. It's been a little while since we talked, so we've got a lot to catch up on. First of all, you announced that you are running for another term.
Yes, that is correct. I've decided to run for at least one more term.
Yeah.
This will be my third term if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, which hopefully I will be.
Yeah. How's the petition process been going? I always ask.
Well, actually, very well. My reception's been very good. Right now I have more than enough signatures to get on the ballot, but I'm going to continue to go out there and reach out to people.
Well, I've talked about this with so many people in the past because I think that's the best way as a candidate to reach the voters. I mean, you're literally knocking on their front door.
Yeah. That's the only way to do it, really, especially in local elections.
Oh, yeah.
You have to get out there, meet the people, and I just don't do it during election time. I do it throughout the term. I'm out to different events and help out different candidates.
And isn't it interesting because you build that bond when you're sitting on their porch or you're talking to them, because you might learn about things that you never even realized were a major issue or major concern.
Yeah, and the prime one was with our garbage and what's going on right now with our garbage pickup. I stopped at a couple's house. They invited me in. We had a nice chat about that, and we're going to look at a different way of maybe how we, pick up garbage in the city of Elmira. So it was very beneficial.
Oh, that's a great idea, and that's why people. I know it's not the most popular right now, but you can open your door when someone knocks on it.
That's it.
I went out on the weekend, but the weekend before, according to my Fitbit, 4 miles for 4 signatures.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
I'm not happy with that ratio. So you mentioned you're running for re-election for mayor. What have you been proudest of? What's your proudest accomplishment so far?
A couple things. One is obviously the development that's happened within the city of Elmira. We've done probably, Frank, almost $200 million worth of development.
No kidding.
Between a couple of big market rate projects and some affordable projects. Of course, we've had LECOM, which was a big boom for the city.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. The other thing is, when I initially came into office, as you may remember, we had a $3.5 million deficit. We have basically erased that deficit and built a $6 million surplus, which has allowed us basically to hold the line on taxes. Very small tax increases over the past few years and a couple of zeros.
Oh, that's great. That must have been quite a difficult job to have that turnaround that quickly.
It was. We had to hire, our administration hired a new Chamberlain who's been excellent at managing our funds. We did have a difficult choice to make when I first got elected. We either had to have a substantial tax increase or lay off police and fire. And
that's a good situation to be in
day
one.
That's what we inherited. So, I think we made the right choice and did the tax increase.
And when you talk to people, as we mentioned, when you're getting petitions or just during your general term, what do they find to be the biggest issue facing Elmira?
Homelessness is one.
Okay, yep.
And we're going to be addressing that in my second term. We're trying the best we can because that's a problem throughout the country. And they often talk about crime in Elmira.
Yeah.
And
I want to get to that in a second. Yeah, I definitely want to get to that in a second because we had Chemung County Executive Moss on, and we had, of course, Chemung County Sheriff Bill Schramm on, and that is the major issue. So let's actually dive into that before we have to go to a break. Community safety in general, and this is at a statewide level, too. It's not just Elmira that's dealing with this when you've got things like bail reform, et cetera.
Yeah, that's been a disaster. Whoever thought of this concept, wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard of such a thing. I've worked closely with the county executive, Chris Moss, and Bill Schramm through my career. And when I saw this come through, I just couldn't believe it. You're emboldening criminals, and you're not doing any help to people that are hooked on drugs and alcohol either. Because basically jails have turned into a triage center for these people, not just a penal institution.
Right.
So this is one major problem we have with the bail reform.
And that's been a major issue from everyone we spoke to, getting police officers, whatever level, because who wants to become a police officer when your hands are tied and it's almost like the state is encouraging criminals to do what they do?
Absolutely. Not just the bail reform, Frank, but the discovery laws.
Yes.
I mean, who wants to come forward now and testify when you're going to be basically, they're going to know your identity, the person that's committing the crime, so it's not good.
And think about that. In all the movies we've always seen, you always try to keep the identity safe, right?
Yeah.
That was, oh no, they found out who I was.
Yeah.
But now it's like, here's their address.
Exactly.
It's scary stuff. We got to take a short break if you'll stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our show, and I'm being joined by Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Thanks again for joining us.
Well, thank you, Frank.
There's so many other things to cover because, as you said, you're up for re-election. When you look back at your time in office, what are some of the things that you learned and could improve from in the early days?
Basically, a lot I could learn from is getting back to the crime issue and involving the community more and helping the officers deal with our crime issue. That's one thing I've learned. The other thing is looking at it going ahead is the homeless issue right now that we have in the city of Elmira and how we're going to tackle that. And basically what I found is working with Casa Trinity, reaching out to them to help us with that issue. So there's just some of the things I've learned. I've learned more about how to get along with our council people and how to build those bridges. That's important that I've learned. So things like that.
And I know we mentioned at the beginning, but you've been very good at community outreach, and you've been very active in making sure that people know where you stand and what you have planned for the city.
Right.
Has that always been a goal of yours?
Yeah, it's always been a goal of mine to be out there with the community because I was born and raised in Elmira, to be part of it, to go to the events, listen to what people have to say. I mean, I think it's important for politicians to be a good listener and leaders to be a good listener and see what's actually going on in their community. Not only the successes, but what needs to be worked on.
Right, and that's probably what you hear the most, though, right? That's
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
nature of it. But you had mentioned the homelessness situation, and it seems to be affecting us all. And a lot of it ties in with the public safety, but we don't have to get back into that. But what have you been doing about housing efforts? Because I know that's been a priority of yours as well.
Yeah, it has been. And, you know, a lot of people say, do we need more affordable housing in Elmira? And the answer is yes. I mean, we need more of that as long as we need the market rate. But by giving the more affordable, we can get people that maybe need that housing into that type of housing. And the other problem we have is the out-of-town landlords and the blighted properties. So trying to move those people out of those blighted properties into more decent type housing.
What are you doing? Because I know that you have some really thriving businesses. Everybody could always use more. What have you done to encourage businesses? And I know, just to highlight, I know this is Chemung County Restaurant Week, I think I saw, where
Right.
people can have
Right.
a fun time with that. But what have you been doing to encourage businesses and get that revenue in?
We've been doing some outreach between Elmira Downtown Development to bring businesses along with STEG. I do sit on the STEG executive board to reach out to different businesses. We have been successful. You know, we have the new restaurant Siam Elephants in Elmira, WMC North, which just opened up. Jim Capriati, who's one of our main developers, who's been, wonderful, is also looking at bringing more restaurants and businesses into the downtown area. It's very difficult, especially with retail, so it's almost impossible.
It is difficult, and I know I hate to bring this up because it's a bad topic, but COVID, we think about the early days of COVID, and it's amazing the places that have been able to survive that, because that's nothing any of us could have done to fix that.
Yeah, and it was a huge problem. But the one thing I can say, when we got that ARP funding from the federal government, we invested a lot of that back into our businesses that were hurt by the pandemic.
That's great.
And I think it did help them, you know, get through this horrible time of the pandemic and the shutdowns.
And it seems to be thriving in some ways. Again, we could always use more businesses and more, and we always support our small businesses. But I would say last time I was in Elmira, you guys are doing a good job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. My wife and I actually went out to dinner downtown. It was nice to see people after dark walking the downtown area, going to the different establishments.
Isn't that great? And when because you've been in office now, you told me, I didn't know this off the top of my head, 8 years, which is amazing. Which is amazing. Did you ever imagine you'd have to be a leader during something like COVID?
No, I mean, you never expect that. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in, you know, management and leadership positions in the Air Force and in the sheriff's office, but this was definitely a different.
Isn't it amazing to think? Because we were talking with Steuben County Manager Jack Wheeler about it, because he used to call the program every week to give us the numbers and where someone was. You know, it's just amazing to think it's been 3 years.
Yeah, it was a trial time for sure. And I got to give kudos to County Executive Chris Moss. He was fantastic. He took the leadership role in that and did an outstanding job for Chemung County and Elmira.
Yeah, he really did. I think a lot of people look towards our area, whether it's Chemung, Steuben, and looked at us as the actual leaders in all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, do you think that at your level, excuse me, I was trying to think of the exact term, but at the top, City Hall, essentially, are you guys back up and running? And
Yes, we wanted to expedite that. I didn't necessarily agree with all these lockdowns, right. I'm sure the county executive didn't, but obviously there's executive orders being put down. But yeah, we're back up and running just with the way we were pre-pandemic.
Oh, that's great.
And I think we made that out fairly well from that.
Now, have you, because when we talked to Moss and we talked to so many people about this, but getting people either to come back to work or to get people to work. I mean, hearing about the corrections officers and the need for that. Have you guys had a struggle trying to get people to work?
We really have. I mean, this last test for a police officer was not very well attended, and it was been very difficult to hire police officers. It's funny, firefighters haven't been too much of a problem, but sanitation workers, buildings and grounds, positions like that have been really difficult to find people that want to step up and work, and it's not a good thing.
No, I wonder why that is. Do you think it is a COVID situation?
I think a lot of it, people got basically used to sitting home, getting the free money, which they again, my opinion is never should have happened.
And it's not free.
It's not free.
We're seeing that now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It comes out of, that's why we have,
Yeah.
the
inflation that we have right
inflation.
now.
Yeah,
Oh, my
exactly.
gosh. But yeah, I've been shocked to learn how many people. It's almost every interview I do. There's a public service announcement in the middle. Please, we're hiring now. I don't know how we overcome it.
Yeah, and I don't know either. And here's a prime example. For a while, Kennedy Valve was trying to hire, starting out at almost $30 an hour. They finally have reached their goal of the employees that they need, but that took them a while.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. We have to take another short break, but when we come back, we've got a few other things to wrap up on. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview, and I'm being joined in the studio by Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Thanks again for joining us this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for having me on.
So we still have quite a few things to get to, and I realized that I hadn't really focused as much on community safety as I'd like to because it's been such a hot topic. Tell us some of the things that you've done in Elmira and the people of Elmira have done to improve community safety. Like you said, you have people walking after dark on the street, and you can't get that too many places anymore.
Right. We have officers out in the community more. Definitely, what we found is that if we engage the community and faith-based leaders to do a team effort to help with law enforcement, to help solve crimes and help prevent crimes, I think that's been helping us in the city of Elmira. As far as the city goes, of course, the officers have our full support.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. So with our expansion of our police force, we added 2 additional police officers, increased our officers from 71 to 73.
Oh, that's great.
Giving them all the equipment they need. Recently, we just bought some black cameras,
Okay.
and what they are is they're license plate readers.
Oh.
We have 50 of them throughout the city of Elmira, and what they do is we know that most crimes are committed, especially shootings and violent crimes, with a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be able to pick up and track that vehicle, probably initiate a traffic stop, and help solve some of the crimes that we have happening, not only in Elmira, but in our area.
Right.
Just recently, we were able to help solve 2 homicides because of those flock cameras.
Wow.
So they've been a huge success so far.
I would say so. So that's some of the ways you're trying to keep it safe. Anything else when you look ahead in your next term? What are you going to be focused on when it comes to community safety? Just always the police?
Yeah, just keep supporting the police. Make sure they're properly staffed. Make sure they have the tools they need. Again, we're battling the state with the no bail and the discovery laws, which makes their job that much more difficult. But we're going to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe.
Can you imagine that Governor Hochul puts in kind of the weakest reforms to the bail reform laws? Nothing serious, but at least a step in the right direction, and it's just completely turned
Well,
out.
I think they need to throw the whole thing out. It wasn't broken to begin with.
No.
Okay, there was different ways. And just to give you an example on how it worked in Chemung County, if someone got arrested on a low-level crime, they go in front of the judge, get arraigned. They couldn't afford bail. We had a organization called Project for Bail that would get the person out of jail and make them responsible so they show up to court. Low-level felonies were taken care of through probation department, where they would do a pre-probation release program. So they need to just go back to the way it was and let the police and the justice system handle the criminals.
And I'm still confused why they have made this kind of the political hill to die on. I don't understand it.
I don't understand it. The far left,
Yeah.
just when you think they can't get any crazier, they do. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, no, me either. You're listening to Frankly Speaking. You're watching Frankly Speaking. That was an old radio habit there, right here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Okay, so probably community safety may be one of the biggest issues you're talked to about when you see someone from the community, but everybody hears about roads and infrastructure.
Yeah.
How are things in Elmira?
They are. People are going to say, geez, the mayor's nuts on driving through and they're hitting potholes, but our last road score came back and they were very good.
Okay.
A lot of the potholes are in the roads that are going to be repaired this year.
Okay.
I want to bring up West Church Street because I get a lot of complaints, including me.
Yeah. Yes.
What people need to realize is, what we're going to do, just to let people know, we are going to do West Church Street, the entire stretch of it this
Okay.
year, so that'll be a brand new road. But we have to wait on the water board and NYSEG before
sure.
we go in and do a road project.
Mm-hmm.
The last one we wanted is do a brand new road and then have them come in and tear it up.
Well, that's
so
true.
there was a process.
Mhm. So that's what when people are calling you and saying, hey, I just lost another muffler,
Yeah.
But that's the problem. And this time of year in our area, we know the case.
It is. This is the worst area.
Mhm.
I've talked to our director of Department of Public Works, and this is the worst area for roads, the
Yeah.
Northeast,
Yeah.
because of the thawing and freezing and
Mhm.
the heaving of the roads.
Now, when as you're running and as you're getting petitions signed, have you been surprised? I know we talked a little bit about the garbage issue, but have you been surprised at what are the concerns or maybe the positives that people are telling you?
A lot of people, the positives are the development. They think the
Yeah.
city's doing a lot better.
Mhm.
I had one gentleman was real happy with the fact that we haven't been raising taxes at all or very little in the past few years. That type of thing. As far as the concerns, roads are a big one.
Mhm.
And they do bring up public safety.
Of
We
course.
talk a lot about that. But those are the two biggest issues.
Well, it's nice that you can keep taxes down because you see some of these areas that increase taxes, and this could not be, going back to what we talked about earlier, with inflation, this could not be a worse time to increase taxes.
Exactly, and that's why we want to hold the line on any type of taxes. With that $6 million surplus we have, that helps us
That
too.
helps a lot.
And it looks like we're going to hopefully come into black again from 2022.
Oh, that's
So,
great. That's great because I think sometimes politicians are quick to throw around our money, and it all comes back to haunt us, and that's why we see so many people leaving New York State in droves.
you have to treat it like your own money.
You really
okay?
do.
If you don't, there's wants and needs.
Mhm.
all right?
Yeah, right.
If it's a want, maybe we can put that on the back burner if you don't have the money. If it's a need, obviously you have to get it.
Right.
And I think that's the way you have to manage your budget.
That's a great mindset to have. I wish more people had that mindset. Of course, we're talking to Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Before we go, as I said, we've mentioned quite a few things that people have contacted you about. Well, how do people contact you? What's the best way to reach you if they have a
They
problem?
reach my email,
Mhm.
djmandel at cityofelmira.net, DJMANDELL at cityofelmira.net, or they can call my office, 607-737-5644.
Now, you said you're running for re-election. How can someone help your campaign? And maybe it's not too late to help petitions, but just in general.
Basically, they want a yard sign or anything like
Mhm.
that, they can also donate to the Chemung County Republican Committee.
Yeah.
That's who's going to be handling the finances for mine and the council's campaign this year. We'd like to keep our council conservative
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and keep our government conservative.
I'm glad you mentioned, and we're going to have Sarah Lattin on in just a little bit, I think next week, to talk about all of this.
Yeah.
But you guys have quite a few races going this year, don't you?
Yeah, we got every single council race
Wow.
up for grabs.
Wow.
And then, of course, we have the DA and the
Yeah.
county sheriff who's unopposed.
Yeah. Boy, that's going to be an exciting time,
Yeah.
at least for me. I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys, but that's going to be a fun time. Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel has been our guest. I can't thank you enough for being on the show, and I hope that you can come on as we get closer to Election Day, just to talk about the issues again.
That sounds good. I will. Thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. We'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Thanks.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you again to Dan Mandel, Elmira Mayor, City of Elmira, of course. That was great to talk with him because, as you see, and I think it goes without saying, we continue to talk about the issues we have with community safety. We continue to talk about things like infrastructure. So very nice to talk with him. And I noticed that with the council races, with him, some of the other people that we've had on so far, this is going to be a very busy campaign season. Of course, many of us naturally focus on the big ones, the presidential races, the Senate races, congressional races, maybe the gubernatorial race. But it's years like this where they call them off year, right? These are really the ones that can affect your day-to-day life the most. As the mayor had mentioned, they try to keep taxes down. They try to cut back on spending. What if he would have went the other way? What if your elected representative would say, no, I'm going to use the taxpayers' money like my own personal piggy bank? If you don't vote at the local level or pay attention to the local level, you're doing yourself a disservice because those are the ones that affect your day-to-day life. You see it with something as little as like the homeowners associations. You'll see some article where they wouldn't let them have a flag or whatever. Well, that's in its own way a small, low level of local politics. So add that to a council or whatever, the legislature. Those are very important, not only positions, but they're very important for you to focus on so you know that you're putting the right person in there. So local, all politics is local, and the more that you study and the more prepared you are, the better you'll be. So that's why we're going to make it a goal here on Frankly Speaking to have as many of those candidates on as possible, because I want you to know who you're voting for. Let's face it, some of that is difficult to find sometimes in a local small community, because there's not a big newspaper presence. Some of the other outlets, they just can't focus on it like we can. That's why we have a really neat opportunity, in my opinion, here with Frankly Speaking, to give you more time with the candidates or more time with your elected leaders. And that's what we had today, in my opinion, with Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but Dan Mandel is over, so you've seen that. But tomorrow we're going to have Hornell Mayor John Buckley, same concept. Let's ask him the questions, right? Let's ask him what is going on in Hornell and what can help you if you're a Hornell resident. Excuse me. What can be different, what can be improved on, what can be added to. Wednesday, we're going to talk to Steuben County DA Brooks Baker. And then Thursday, just have a little fun with former Congressman Tom Reed and see how he is doing. So that's a look ahead at this week. One last time with the contact information before we get back into various stories. I want to make sure that I'm not running too late on my breaks. No, I'm doing just fine. We're going to talk when we come back some more New York State issues. We mentioned kind of the wackiness of some of the school situations. We've got a couple updates on that as well. But again, always contact me if you have any questions or something you'd like me to bring up specifically. I would love to hear from you. So let's take that short break. When we come back, a lot to cover right here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. I mentioned earlier Congressman Langworthy. Let me get the contact information on there. I mentioned Congressman Langworthy's support for the Parents' Bill of Rights Act. And we've talked about the schools and kind of this culture of going to the left, not just in what they're teaching, but in the all-out agenda. And I found this story just at a New York State level because we've talked about all the issues that we've had with people leaving, obviously bail reform, which we bring up every program. This is just something new. I'm not going to say it's a slippery slope, but there's a few names that were banned for mascots and for schools, and they keep adding on to it. Now they are suggesting, New York State Education Advisory Board, that the Raiders and the Warriors have to go. Now, there was a group fighting it that they wanted an exception on the ban on mascots and team names that refer to indigenous people. The Board of Regents is expected to vote on the ban at their April 17th meeting. Kind of maybe one of those things where you say, wait a minute, is this the most pressing issue in New York State? Perhaps not, but one that ties in with kind of the overall culture in New York State politics and education system, which leads us to this story, which is more highlight. The video is always going on New York Post. This is coming from the New York Post. We talked about this with Assemblyman Paul Massano and I believe Assemblyman Chris Friend, and it's these tax breaks for Hollywood. And why does Carl Campanelli suggest in this article on the New York Post that it shows the left as being hypocrites? Well, it's a great point. Did you know that film and TV related breaks, these tax breaks for Hollywood, cost New York taxpayers $66,819 for each production job annually? That's coming from Reinvent Albany, which is a watchdog group that studies this type of thing. Compare that whopping figure, and you may remember this. AOC got a lot of blame for costing Queens an Amazon warehouse, all these jobs. They would have received, Amazon, $19,329 in subsidies that the state and city would have had to pay per full-time job at the Amazon headquarters. Very big difference. But what is the difference? Amazon is not looked at as friendly by the left or by Democrat politicians. But, of course, Hollywood not only leans heavy left, they also donate with all the money that they make to many of these left candidates, far left candidates in many instances. Steven Spielberg, just him, contributed the maximum $47,100 to Governor Kathy Hochul's campaign last year. We can go through more and more, but that's not the point. Now, the same liberal Albany lawmakers who rejected their proposed $3 billion Amazon campus project, which would have brought so much. And again, this wasn't our area necessarily, but it goes to paint a larger picture of what we're dealing with in New York and specifically in Albany. But they rejected that $3 billion Amazon campus. They said it was too much of a corporate giveaway. I guess Hollywood doesn't fit into their definition of corporate, or maybe it's because Hollywood spends so much money with them. But they said it was a giveaway. but now they're going to sign a much larger 11-year, $7.7 billion film and TV deal as part of the new state budget, which the goal is still to be approved on April 1st. I guess time will tell on that. Currently, film and TV tax credits cost the state treasury about $420 million per year. So is this a thank you from the far left for all the support Hollywood gives them, for all, whether that's financially or just in the way that they are covered by the media and the film industry? Because I saw, well, you could see time and time again, whether it's the media or Hollywood, promoting the left agenda or promoting specific politicians themselves. So this is basically a giveaway for the Hollywood elites, all at our expense. This goes very closely with so many of these issues, with who Albany gives breaks to and who they don't. We talked about the wrong-headed decision of public tax dollars being used for campaign. We are throwing away good money after good money to support this far left agenda. And I believe that's what we're seeing here with Hollywood. And I believe that's also what we see with the campaign finance that you and I will be paying for. Whether you like the candidate or not, you're going to be paying for it. One other quick New York story before we that's the one I just looked at. Before we go to break, this is really interesting. Obviously, we don't think of Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, disgraced Governor Cuomo, as any way, shape, or form a Trump supporter. But he slammed this New York investigation into Trump, saying, and you see the quote there, it's feeding cancer in our body politics. This was on WABC 770, I'm assuming is how they say it, the radio station, the Cats Roundtable in New York over the weekend. He says he doesn't understand why Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is putting such an emphasis on this case. A lot of people have speculated about that. I know we haven't really dove too deep into it, but looking, maybe using his platform to go after what many on the left see as an enemy in Donald Trump. Cuomo agreed that the case could be a possible misdemeanor, but also it should be a federal case instead of a state one. This is what former Governor Cuomo said. I don't believe a Democrat prosecutor just happens to be attacking a Republican. I don't believe a Republican prosecutor just happens to be attacking a Democrat. I think it's all politics. I think that's what the people of the country are saying. He said, and I think it feeds the cynicism, and that's a cancer in our body politic right now. And that's a fair enough point, that it does create the cynicism, and many have said that this will only go to benefit former President Trump, because people will see this as almost a martyr status, right? See this as exactly what he had been saying from the beginning, that the media, that the swamp, the people behind the scenes, the bureaucrats, are the ones that are attacking him and keeping him from being president or winning a second term or whatever the case may be. So does it play right into that position? And I think that's what Cuomo is scared of there, because in his belief, if I'm reading between the lines, it does. It encourages Trump supporters, but it also, in the long run, I think in Governor Cuomo's mind and many others, that in the long run it benefits the former president, Donald Trump. Now, we've got to take another short break, so stay with us. We're covering a lot this morning. Not only did we have the mayor in, Dan Mandel, we've been able to get to quite a few different stories and some all across the board stories. So let's take another short break, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live on Market Street in Corning. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I wanted to mention this really quick, and I haven't had a chance yet this morning because we've been just moving right along. There's a fundraiser. There we go. There's a fundraiser, rigatoni and meatballs dinner. It's at Grace United Methodist Church right here in Corning. It's on Thursday. The reason I mentioned it, I wanted to mention it today, is because today's the last day that you can order. So call them there to help out Grace United Methodist Church by getting a great meal and for a great price. Do you realize it's only $10 for rigatoni and meatball dinner? at the Great Grace United Methodist Church. So I wanted, again, we're local folks, and this is what we're trying to hit on as much as possible. So if you are involved in an organization that's holding a fundraiser, please contact me. So I'm leaving that phone number up for just a second, and then we'll go back to my contact information. We would love to highlight your event, your fundraising event. So here is my contact information. You can reach me here, and we can spread the word on your event. It's just that simple. And by the way, just as a kind of an update or maybe something you're not aware of, that phone number is good throughout the day. It's not just for when we're on the air. It'll save your messages, and I can highlight those a little bit later on. So again, thank you to Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel for being on the program. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow on the program, Hornell Mayor John Buckley, and on Wednesday, Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker, and then on Thursday, former Congressman Tom Reed. But the one thing I highlighted earlier this morning, or didn't get a chance to highlight, but wanted to mention to you, I kind of hinted towards it, I guess is the right word. Many people have asked, are you going to have Dwayne Eddy on the program? Dwayne Eddy, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, amazing catalog of songs. He was born in Corning and lived around the area for the earlier part of his life. Many of you may know I helped, or I tried to get the Steuben County Hall of Fame to recognize him. They did. So something that I think a lot of people want to see is him recognized even more in our area. So I thought, what a great opportunity now that we have this platform with Frankly Speaking. And so, yes, I did reach out to Dwayne Eddy for all those that have been asking, and he is going to be on the program very soon. I will let you know as soon as that's set in stone, but it's probably going to be a one, maybe two-part, Frankly Speaking. That's how much time he said. He's doing good, by the way, and we had a nice chat on Saturday, and he said, yeah, he would love to do the show. So we're going to have him on soon. But that does it for me today. Unbelievable. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone, and join us tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Have a great day.